The psalm for today is 130, and we'll read it responsibly. Out of the depths I cry to you, O Lord. Lord, hear my voice.
Let your ears be attentive to the voice of my supplications.
If you, O Lord, should mark iniquities, Lord, who could stand?
But there is forgiveness with you, that you may be worshipped.
I wait for the Lord, my soul waits. In the Lord's word I hope.
My soul waits for the Lord, more than those who watch for the morning, more than those who watch for the morning.
O Israel, hope in the Lord. For with the Lord there is steadfast love. With the Lord there is plenteous redemption.
And the Lord will redeem Israel from all iniquities.
You may be seated. The scripture reading today comes from John chapter 11, verses 17 through 37. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe this? Yes, Lord, she replied. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into the world. After she said this, she went back and called her sister Mary aside. The teacher is here, she said, and is asking for you. When Mary heard this, she got up quickly and went to him. Now Jesus had not yet entered the village, but was still at the place where Martha had met him. When the Jews who had been with Mary in her house, comforting her, noticed how quickly she got up and went out, they followed her, supposing she was going to the tomb to mourn there. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, see how he loved him? But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? God is still speaking.
Thanks be to God.
Where have you laid him? Lord, come and see. Jesus wept. And the other people said, look how much he loved him. But some people said, well, couldn't the one who made the blind man see have saved this man's life? Because we have lectionary readings in small pieces, one of the things we lose in the translation is the general sweep of a whole gospel, let's say. And so in John's gospel, this is the third time that the invitation to come and see appears. It starts in the first chapter of John's gospel, where Jesus has burst on the scene, and two guys who are interested in what he's up to say, so where are you living? And he just goes, well, come and see. So it's a question of curiosity. It's an easy question. Where are you living? Well, come and see. A little later in chapter 1, Nathanael has already begun to reach out to other people, and he asks Philip to come and join the crew. He says, yeah, this guy from Nazareth is pretty good. And he says, well, can anything good come from Nazareth? And Nathanael says, why don't you come and see? So here, it's not just curiosity. It's an openness perhaps to a new possibility, one he hasn't imagined before, that somebody good could actually come from Nazareth. And so Jesus begins by inviting someone to come and see. Then other disciples on his behalf invite people to come and see. And here at the end of the gospel, as Jesus is confronted with the death of his friend, it is Jesus who's told to come and see. 3 times in this gospel, the only gospel where those words show up in that way. And it struck me this week that it's a cycle of invitation going on here. Some of it low-key. So where are you living? Some of it a little more important. Can anything good come out of Nazareth? Yeah, come and see. And then here, it's a question of looking matters of life and death in the face and taking all that quite seriously. But it is a cycle of invitation. The gospel, at least as I read it and hear it and experience it, is rarely a harangue. But the gospel is always, as I read it and hear it, an invitation. It is always an invitation, even about matters of life and death. It's an invitation. Someone must extend it. Someone must hear it. And then everybody needs to keep their eyes open. We're not just coming and going. We've also said we're going to see. We're going to actually see what's in front of us. Here, an old invitation from 1759, Come Ye Sinners, sung by Ashley Cleveland. I quoted one of the lines from this 2 weeks ago, and you get extra credit if you remember which one it was, so listen up. Simpler in 1759, but they were at least clearer. Although when you Google the author of this, Joseph Hart, the painting of him, I think he probably would have been freaked out by that arrangement, but that's all right. Because 255 years later, the invitation is to a variety of categories of people. This is part of that cycle of invitation that I think begins in John's gospel. These categories, these situations, these circumstances, it was perhaps easier in 1759 to specify who this invitation was for. And as I read the categories, maybe you can put yourselves in them. And I won't ask for a show of hands. Sinners, that would be me. Poor, needy, weak and wounded, sick and sore, thirsty, weary, heavy laden, lost and ruined by the fall. And then the line, if you tarry till you're better, you'll never come at all. In 1759, what we were inviting people to perhaps was clearer to us then. The person who wrote this hymn is inviting all those in those circumstances of life to come closer to a connection to God and receive healing and power and forgiveness. Those categories are clear in 1759. Some of them would still be clear today, and perhaps we'd want to add a few of our own. But the invitation to people to make a closer relationship with God so that their healing and their empowerment and their forgiveness might begin and deepen is there. This is called sometimes evangelism, an invitation to people to draw closer to God, extended by someone who's far from perfect, but who at least has experienced something about the power of that connection. When we talk about evangelism usually now, people say, well, I'm not interested in doing that kind of hard sell stuff. I'm not going to go door to door. I'm not going to put things on doorknobs. I'm not going to harass people on the subway. I'm not going to go and get in their face, and so I'm not going to do that. That's the hard sell. But then sometimes when we talk about, for want of a better term, the soft sell, that doesn't go any better. Why? Are we shy? Some people are shy. Are we unsure of the right words? Well, that's possible. Are we not certain of what we want to say? That's a perfectly good reason. Do we believe less than we used to and don't have much to say? That's possible. Is it that we don't want to offend people? That's fine. Not offending people is nice. But if the hard sell doesn't work, and if the soft sell has impediments to it, then I think the third choice is what used to come up on old-fashioned cash registers when I was growing up. No sale. That's the third possibility. We got a hard sell, a soft sell, or no sale. And yet, in John's gospel, this cycle of invitation seems very natural. So where are you living now? Well, come and see. Anything good come out of Nazareth? Why don't you come and see? Check it out. Where have you laid him? Lord, come and see. Curiosity, new possibility, coming face to face with matters of life and death. And so, as frequently happens in a sermon, we have no alternative but to be driven back to the text, driven back to these series of invitations. If anyone had the right to be haranguing people, it would be, well, Jesus. Instead, his words are, come and see. Move from where you are, closer to where I am, and then keep your eyes open. What's so hard about that? Move from where you are, closer to where I am, and keep your eyes open. Come and see. Where I'm staying, come and see whether something good can come out of a nowhere town in a nowhere part of the country. Come and see where your friend has been laid. Come. Move from where you are. Move closer to where I am. And keep your eyes open. The fact that the gospel is frequently experienced by us as something spoken in loud, grating terms is softened significantly by this style. Is softened significantly by this invitation, which simply says, move from where you are, closer to where I am, and keep your eyes open so we'll be able to see what's happening right before our faces. It's good for curiosity. It's good to be open to new possibilities. And it will even help in looking at the hard issues of life and death. Jesus' invitation in this gospel, Joseph Hart's invitation in 1759, and our invitation to one another in the present moment are all tied together for me. We went to a workshop yesterday, a number of us, Amanda and Bethany and Nan and I, and the speaker said, particularly about clergy, but if you want to expand it, you can, that if you have to have an endless series of workshops, clergy, role-playing, and practice at how to talk to someone about what's good that's going on in your church, then as a clergy person, you're probably in the wrong business. If it is such hard work to talk about what it is that is worthwhile, what it is that is life-giving, what it is that might transform someone's life, what it is that might help them through a difficult moment or help them be gratitude for a wonderful moment. If it is so hard to find the words to invite someone closer to those realities, then at least for clergy, we're probably in the wrong business. And for people who have been part of churches and communities over the time, decades, it's a good question to ask ourselves. How does that get easier? How does it get more authentic? How does it get more real? So that people might hear from us what we've already heard from someone else. Come and see. I think it will be a good thing once you're here. It has been for me over time. In this Sunday of Lent, the fifth Sunday of Lent, in this season of the church's year, nothing could be more important than allowing ourselves to hear once again an invitation to get stronger, be clear that we're forgiven, be empowered to move forward in the mission we've been given, and to find the right ways to extend that invitation to others. No harangue, no lecture. It's not a question of being on the bus or off the bus. It's a question of letting people experience what we've already experienced ourselves. An invitation to leave where we've been, move closer to where Jesus is, and keep our eyes open in the process. And for that, we say thanks be to God. Amen. Let us have some silence together.